Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All Things Middle-earth here with a video looking at one of the best free-to-play commanders in the entire game, in my opinion. So stay tuned, I'm going to break down this character's kit in just 1 second. Okay, so we are going to waste no time today. You came here to figure out some skills and different builds for Grima, so we're going to jump right into it. What you're seeing here on the screen is, in my opinion, the most ideal build for Grima. I do think there can be a couple of different variations, and if you look in different places and different discords, I've seen some variations of this, some focused more in Wormtongue and less in the R5. But based on some pictures that I've seen and some testing that I've done, I found some great use out of this build here, which obviously is going to require the R5. But it's going to start with you going 2 points into Wormtongue and 1 point into Master of Mischief. This is just going to get you the madness effect from these abilities, so we aren't going to try and get, the focus negative 6.6. We're not going to worry about that. And we also aren't going to be going into Enfeeble. Mostly my reasoning for this, and from what I understand, is since the Enfeeble is only going to activate when the madness hits, which is going to be kind of situational. Some commanders are going to even have counters for madness. I think it's a great trait to have, but relying on putting 7 points in to deal damage in those situational times, I think is just not going to be the most amazing use of points. But that's just what I've seen. I have seen some builds that seem to be very solid with it as well. But again, we're just starting out going 2 points into Wormtongue, 1 point into Master of Mischief. Next, we're going to go into Survivor, followed by Prudence. And if we max out Survivor starting in round 4 because of the max level effect, we're going to get a damage reduction of 30% for all allied units. So that's round 4 on. And then with Prudence, starting in the first 2 rounds, all allied units are going to have a 50% chance to evade damage. So again, if they evade, they take no damage. And then they also are going to get a damage negative 30% there. And so again, basically in round 1, 2, not counting round 3, and then round 4 onward, you're going to have damage reduction or damage avoidance, which is just fantastic. So right off the bat with Grima, he's already going to be hard to take out with these 2 skills. And not to mention, he's going to be trying to hit you with madness, so you might have your own troops attacking you in that situation. So those are the 3rd and 4th skills you're going to go into for Grima. Next, we're going to go into Wizard's Assistant. Now, we're not going to be going into Wizard's Assistant because I think it itself is an amazing thing. It's not a terrible ability. It does get us 15 extra focus at the max level, but it's going to have a 50% chance for us to deal an additional 280% poison damage. This is not like a Grima poison build by any means, but we really just want access to the next skill we're going to use, which is going to be lower defenses. And on a hit against enemy armies, there's a 50% chance of them to receive an additional 30% damage. So this is really the skill we're after here. Not so much Wizard's Assistant, but unfortunately we have to go for Wizard's Assistant to get lower defenses. And then lastly, any remaining points you have are going to go into Second in Command, which is going to give the commander extra focus. And allied melee units are going to deal an extra 15% damage during combat with an extra 15 focus from the max level effect there. And then the extra points are going to be going into Discipline. So right now at level 48, I have my Grima at Respect 10. At level 48, I've imparted Wisdom to him. This is what the build looks like. So for me, the ideal build would have 2 more points in Discipline at level 50, where he's going to get that Defense 35. You got Second in Command maxed out, Survivor, Wizard's Assistant, and lower defenses. You have Prudence maxed out, and then the 2 points in Wormtongue and into Master of Mischief with 1 point just to get that madness. But again, something that I wanted to make sure I pointed out was the difference between Anticipation and Prudence. Since they both have the evade here, these different abilities will not stack. So if you are running him at lower respect, which I'll mention when we talk about it, you're going to want to go into one or the other, and I prefer the Prudence ability. But again, that's going to be the R5 madness and kind of defensive build for Grima, which I'm going to rate at an A+, which I think is kind of tied for or one of the highest ratings we've done. I think Aowen we gave an S tier rating to with her best build. But I think, again, Grima's going to just do some fantastic stuff. I've seen him punching up and taking out Galadriels and a ton of just crazy, by himself, he's not going to be wiping 7 armies. But these other armies that would usually come in and nuke armies out of the ground, Grima really seems to keep pace with them and can really help turn the tide. If you're having a spot attacked and need someone just to hold ground for a second, Grima could be that guy for you to be really solid. So I think this is a very excellent build for Grima. Okay, so now looking at the R3 build for Grima. Obviously, we won't have access to the R5 here in this build, and so we're going to start out with our 2 points into Wormtongue again. We're going to have our Master of Mischief here. Again, this is going to be the theme for all of these builds. So that gives us the madness right away at a pretty low point cost. Then we're going to go into Survivor, which again, same thing as last time. Starting in round 4, we get that damage reduction. with Prudence, 7 points there. It's going to give us that chance to evade damage. And then lastly, for this build, we have second in command with the Discipline for extra defense, and we have the extra damage dealt here by melee units, and we get some extra focus for Grima. Obviously, depending on the level of your commander and the respect, myself, I have 20 points left here. So in this case, I would go ahead and max out Wormtongue, and probably in this situation, Master of Mischief as well. I think this gives me a defense negative 35. So I think I would take maxing out both of these abilities, and I think you would even still have a point or two to go into Enfeeble. But again, you can just start with that 2 points and 1 point up here in the top tree and do the bottom trees here. But again, this is a fantastic build as well. I think I have this one ranked at a B+ compared to the A+ for the previous one. So not a huge drop, and I honestly think there are some arguments where this could even punch up. Again, I've really just been impressed by Grima overall. So it kind of gets to where you're splitting hairs when you try and decide which one's better. And I think there's some people who would maybe make the argument that maxing out a tree like Wormtongue is more beneficial than even going into Wizard's Assistance at all. In which case, if it was at least equal to or even better than the R5 build, that just makes Grima an even more viable commander at a lower respect level. So that's fantastic news regardless. This is a good build, and you're going to get a lot of use out of it. And last but not least for Grima, we do have his Respect 1 build. Again, we are starting out with the Wormtongue. Now, second in command, you cannot put points into it until you've put in 5 points in other areas. So you have to go 3 points. Well, what I would suggest doing is 3 points into Wormtongue, followed by Master of Mischief, followed by 1 point in Enfeeble. So get your 5 points there. Then go ahead and max out second in command, do Discipline maxed out, and Anticipation maxed out. Now, again, I've got a lot of points left. My Grima's level 48. He's Respect 10. If you're just starting out, if you've just got him at Respect 0 or 1 and you're just starting out, your build will look closer to this for a while. But as you get more points, again, you can max out Wormtongue, you can max out Master of Mischief, and you can max out Enfeeble. Again, they're all very solid abilities, and you can still get some great use out of Grima. Again, stepping him down in terms of builds, I would put this one just a step below the R3. I really think he does step R5, R3, R1, but they're all very close here, so I don't think it's really worth spending too much time on. Again, if you are in an area where you can do some combat, I would just suggest if you want to try out these different things, try out a build with full Wormtongue instead of Wizard's Assistant if you want to see the differences there. But I found them to be pretty minor in the situations I was able to test Grima in, but obviously that's going to change depending on your situations. Something I do want to mention for Grima in this R1 build is obviously since you're using Anticipation, it is for the allied unit with the lowest defense. So there are some recommendations in terms of troop compositions that are just to run one type of troop. If you just run one troop type, then they all are going to get this chance to evade damage. So that can be a solid option with Grima. Grima can also be a commander who uses Mumakil to a fantastic level. Honestly, if we had a Grima with Mumakil build, he would run second in command with Anticipation as opposed to Prudence. If we were to run a Grima Mumakil build, I think it would be S tier or S+. He is absolutely ridiculous with a full Mumakil march because they're all going to get the benefits of this Anticipation. He's not going to do as much damage as other like damage dealing commanders, but you'll have less Mumakil losses, and those are expensive and they take a long time to do. So even at R1, depending on who you're playing as, if you're playing as Mordor, there could be an R1 Mumakil build for you with Grima that sits like seriously top of the line. So again, there's so many options. I didn't include the Mumakil build as one of the builds in the chart because it is very situational. And Mumakil, I see, unless they somehow change how they're, how that unit works, they're a very, very powerful troop, and it seems like they're very, very fought after. And so depending on who you're playing as, you may not have access to them. So I didn't want to add that as a super situational build. But again, there is a build, I think, with Anticipation, with Mumakil, that would even surpass his R5 build. You might still look into going into the R5 for lower defenses. But again, with those Mumakil, it's going to be absolutely ridiculous. Okay, now looking at the different weapons and armor and accessories and all that good stuff for Grima. I've got some suggestions here that I think would do fantastic, but as I have mentioned with Grima specifically, probably more than any other commander we have done, it really, really, really seems like the items and the troops you use with him are not as important as other commanders. He doesn't have skills that you need mounted troops or you need melee troops or you need men for, or whatever it is. He can succeed with a lot. So bear that in mind. But I've just tried to pick some purple and gold items to suggest that are going to just be complementary to the builds he's running. But obviously go with what items you have. And honestly, if you're running Grima, you might even have items that are better used on other commanders because he's going to do fine without them. But all that being said, we've got the Cutlass with Melee Might as a purple option. We have the Scale Mail with Guard. Again, guard. It's going to give you that defense every round. So that could be something very fantastic to add to his kit already. The Brutal Helm with Dread, which is going to be every 3 rounds, a 50% chance to stun once that's fully refined. So adding a stun into the mix with this build is going to be kind of insane. Then you've got a Worn Out Smoking Pipe with Sustain. Again, any kind of healing or things like that, especially if you were looking at the Mumakil build, that can be absolutely broken. But just you want to have the least troop losses as possible because Grima is going to go toe-to-toe with some pretty powerful commanders, and they're going to end up kind of destroying themselves almost in time. So the more healing you have, the better for him in those situations. And then over on the gold side, we have the Sandclaw with Rend. We have the Great Plate of the East with Hazard Training. The Cask of Pride just, I think, has army defense on it. It's just a solid gold headpiece there. And then the Fine Smoking Pipe with either Critical Care or Second Wind would be a fantastic choice as well. But again, I wouldn't get too hung up on these or the troops we'll talk about in 1 second because it does seem like, in my experience, people will run Grima with all blue items and have fantastic use out of him. Again, if he's one of your only commanders and you have some good gear, feel free to throw it on him. But it's not like you need to strengthen all this gear and refine it all the way to get use. I'm sure there are some crazy Grimas that have full gold, strengthen and refined gear where it's just like a cut above the rest. But I do think you get most of Grima's viability with pretty basic gear. And lastly, we're going to look at the factions and troops that this commander will benefit the most from. And basically, I'll show you what I used in my different battles. But again, this is the same thing where I feel like Grima can succeed with a lot of different combinations, as I've said here on the sheet. What I ran with him was about 100 Trolls, 2,000 Berserkers, and 3,000 Alchemists. Let me go ahead and pull up the report so you can see what I was working with here. This is one of the battles I tested. Again, you got a 48 Theoden and a 48 Grima. These were not like, this wasn't an ideal Theoden either, nor was the troop comp 100% full. But again, this is the composition that I ran with him here. That seemed to work very well. Again, if you look at the stats here, he did very, very well. Took less damage than Theoden, which Theoden being one of the best commanders in the game. That is a fantastic, fantastic job there. Not 100% ideal built Theoden in my opinion, so I don't want to take this too out of context. But that's the build I was running there. Again, he came up against a Dwalin who wasn't very powerful, crushed him there. Tested out on a 200 power tile. Again, this is more PvE than PvP, but same troop comp here. Absolutely no problem one-shotting a 200 power tile. And would be able to do a lot of higher tiles otherwise. But again, the point is Grima succeeds with this troop composition I have here with the Trolls, Berserkers, and Alchemists. But I would just suggest use whatever the highest tier troops you have that are the most upgraded. So again, don't take in I wouldn't suggest taking in just all one troop type, like your highest DPS troop, because you do want Grima to be able to last, especially if he comes up against a more difficult commander. But I've seen this combination. I've seen just Trolls and Alchemists, and then I've seen some different combinations with Reapers and Crushers and all different kinds of Orcs and all kinds of things. And it really seems like there's a lot of different options for Grima. So again, I wouldn't get too hung up on the troop compositions. Obviously, the Discord is linked down below. If you are going to start running Grima and you have questions, or maybe you're not getting a certain troop comp to work the way you think it should, feel free to hop in the Discord and just ask a question. We've got a lot of people who have used Grima and would probably be happy to help figure out a best situation for troops with him. But in my experience, it seems like it's going to come down to just whatever best options you have, more than there being a needed, necessary option for troops for him to succeed. He's going to be solid, kind of regardless. So again, that has been the commander breakdown on Grima. The spreadsheet's going to be linked down below. The Discord's linked down below, all that good stuff. So feel free to check those things out if you like. And as always, I'll see you in a future video.